recording. So, testing 1, 2, 3. Right. Welcome to today's episode of the Wolf Digest. I'm your host, Amaros.
And I'm your co-host, Terkanil. And today we have another special episode. As such, we have a guest today. Eclipsewolf again is here to join us for this one.
Hello, good to be back.
And our suggestion today was to go into one of the other companies that we're all very familiar with. That we've all spent far too many hours.
Years.
I'm going to say hours. I'm going to be nice here.
Well, if you do /played, it will be in hours, yes. Hey, but
we're not going to talk about that.
Mine rolled over into months a long time ago.
No comment.
Not quite as bad.
More achievements in some games than you guys.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
But that's just being an achievement whore, though.
I don't go after those quite as much.
So we're going to be focusing on Activision-Blizzard, or as they used to be known, Blizzard, because we're going to go back that far. And we're going to talk about its life in the past, what's brought it to the current present, and where we see it going in the future. So we want to go ahead and talk about what's your first game that you played from Blizzard?
Well, how about we start with Eclipsewolf, since she's the newest in the realm, as far as I'm aware.
Probably. I didn't get a whole lot of gaming growing up, so my first game from Blizzard was actually World of Warcraft. I was introduced to that back shortly after Wrath launched.
And that was by your then boyfriend, right?
Yeah, fiance, I think, was at the time. Saw him playing it, said, hey, that looks kind of cool. We were kind of long distance and figured, hey, that would be something we could do during the week when we can't see each other. And it worked out pretty
World of Warcraft date night. Hey, that sounds like a pretty good thing for any household, actually.
Exactly.
As long as it's cooperative and not PvP against each other, right?
Hey, you never know. It might be a good way to get out some aggression.
That's what StarCraft is for, though. But we'll get to that.
From there, kind of went into, did a little bit of the Diablo, and then just kind of picked up all the rest of the games as we've gone along. Not too much into the StarCraft stuff, but not really my jazz for games.
Yeah, you're more of an RPG kind of person.
Yep.
Yeah, that's why we had you for the Bethesda stuff, because you're definitely pretty heavy into that realm as well.
Yep.
What about you, Terkanil? What was your first?
Warcraft 1.
Oh. Did you have to launch that from DOS?
Yeah, Warcraft Orcs and Humans. Actually, I would play that one at a friend's house because I couldn't afford it. The first one I actually got my hands on that I was actually able to play at home was the original StarCraft. And then later I was able to get Warcraft 2. But yeah, I've been playing since way back.
Yeah, well, I was deprived as a child, and I think I'm actually younger than you, and so
you are.
My first modern computer running Windows was in 95. So before that, I was on DOS only, on an old computer that couldn't handle Warcraft 1, that kind of stuff. So I never really made it into the whole Blizzard gaming community until I got that computer at the very least. And so my first was actually the original Diablo, pre-expansion pack.
Yeah, we don't count that thing anyway.
Yeah. And I think StarCraft was right around the same time, so I can't really say for certain exactly which was the first, but I'm pretty confident that it was Diablo.
Looking.
Google it. So, yeah.
Nope, that's not it.
I mean, I had a lot of fun with the original Diablo, but I don't know. I wasn't that great at it initially, and so I couldn't for the life of me beat the game at the harder difficulty levels. I just get one-shotted pretty much all the time. I didn't have the right gear composition or have the right something. But, a lot better at it now.
Yeah, so for point of reference, the original Diablo came out in 96.
Mm.
The original StarCraft came out in 98.
So yeah, it would have been Diablo then.
So the old massive clickfest, the killer of mice.
Yes, and I have actually lost a mouse to Diablo.
I killed 2 with that game.
Yeah. Mine stopped right-clicking. Because that's the button that I put all my specials on, So, all sorts of fun. So, what's the games that we currently focus on? I mean, we don't have the time in our day to play all of them all the time, obviously. So, what's your primary Blizzard game, do you think?
Wow.
For sure, World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
For me, and still doing current content, still raiding. Stepped back a little bit. We'll talk about the content maybe a little further down the line, just not quite being there. But yeah, out of all of them, that's.
Yeah, and I actually stream our guild runs, so you can check those out as well. Turk's over on Mixer. I stream out on YouTube right here in my alternate gaming channels, so I have a link for it here on YouTube. But you can also follow me on Twitter and get notifications when I'm streaming as well.
Be prepared if you do. There's a lot of snark from our guild.
Oh yeah, it's a hoot and a holler for sure. We all have our little in jokes, and we like to abuse the crap out of it.
Yeah, I long since set my my stream at the 18+ level, and I have my bot spamming in chat saying it's set there because my guild is insane, and I don't know what they're going to say.
Because we can literally say anything.
And they have.
Many of times. Usually it's not a raid until somebody goes there. And by there, there's quotes around that.
Any topic can become a joke.
And most often
defensive
does.
or not.
And most often is.
I think we've lost a few people because of that.
Maybe.
They're lost.
They're lost, yep.
But I also still play Diablo 3. I haven't loaded up StarCraft 2 in a while. Still need to. I haven't finished it. Don't really play Hearthstone quite as much. I actually still play Heroes on occasion. Like yesterday, I personally went to a LAN party, and there was a group of us playing that like half the day.
Well, Hearthstone never really caught my fancy. I mean, I played a little bit just to get the achieves and things like that, but it never really stuck for me. Warcraft 3 was a little better for that. Heroes, I'm not really a big MOBA fan, and so that never really appealed to me. But I'd say my second would be tough. Probably Diablo, as much as I hate to say it over StarCraft. But StarCraft is a pretty close third. And then Overwatch, I have it. I still haven't even played one round of Overwatch. I'm probably going to change that, but I'm not antsy to do so.
Yeah, I've loaded it up a few times.
Yeah, and I actually enjoy shooters. So the fact I haven't launched it is kind of a sad thing.
Now, really quick, at this point, I have to at least bring this one up. Because the company name is Activision-Blizzard. And I know you guys have touched on the other side of that coin. What Activision games have you played?
Probably for me would be Destiny.
Can I cheat and just Google what games they have and maybe read down the list? Because they have a very large list of games.
Well, let's go with more recent stuff.
I have not played Call of Duty hardly at all. Does that count? That like wipes out most of their games, right? Destiny
Oh, good
2,
chunk.
but now that Bungie is spun off, that's another thing altogether now.
Yeah,
Welcome
we'll
back.
talk about that later.
They got the Transformers IP, didn't they? Yeah, I didn't play any of that. Huh. I'm just scrolling through games that they've made, and I can't honestly say I've played a whole lot of them.
Yeah, basically Destiny 2 is the only thing I've ever touched on. So
I've not even played the Destiny games, and the only Call of Duty I've personally played is Modern Warfare, and that's only because it came with my Xbox.
Yeah, you can't say no to free games, right?
Well, I was after an Xbox, and it kind of just was there. So,
That's about the only reason I'd play Call of Duty too, because I'm a big single player story mode kind of guy. Like that's why I like Doom and such, as your single story playthrough that you can do. But Call of Duty doesn't really have that anymore.
And nobody cares about that. Why would they?
And Battlefield, their single player campaign in Battlefield 5 is actually a point of ridicule at the moment.
Well, leave that alone.
Yeah, we'll save that for a tech news day or a gaming news day. They all just kind of blend together anyway, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So we've talked about a little bit about each of their games. Up until this last year, they've been fairly steady growth with Overwatch coming out and their tournaments, and obviously WoW's been having its continual seasons. Something went wrong last.
Well, Blizzard has had problems over the years, and they're as much as some fanboys like to say, Blizzard can do no wrong. If we go back and look at, I'm just going to step back for a second. Diablo 3, when it first came out, had a large assortment of problems,
An
and
auction
it took
house.
the expansion to fix it.
Yep.
If we go into WoW, there's been a couple expansions here and there that probably after I'd say especially after Wrath, there's been a lot of division among the community as to whether the expansion is good or bad, and over the time each one has had more and more conflict. But this last BlizzCon, we go back to the Diablo realm, and this is the first time I've ever seen a BlizzCon where here's an announcement and the room goes dead.
And it took me reminding you that it went dead for you to realize that it actually did.
Yeah, I actually
You
had to go
remember
back
that?
and pull that up again.
I'm like,
Yep, wait,
you're
what?
remembering this wrong here. And
I
you're
actually
like,
went back and watched. I sat there going,
oh my gosh, he's right.
yeah. I've
Well,
never seen that room that quiet.
well, the problem Blizzard started with is they had hyped something about Diablo. They didn't say what, and they got their train going, and then they tried to rein it back in, saying, "Hey, it's probably not what you think." But they still probably expected something. A little bit of a Diablo 4 announcement, a new class introduction, maybe another expansion. But we were hit way out of left field with what they did come out with, and that was their mobile title.
And the problem is but they're looking at it saying, well, everyone has mobile phones. And it's like, yeah, the problem is that in the Western world, yeah, we have our mobile phones, but we don't play a lot of big games on them because we don't really care. A lot of the people over here don't care so much, especially for the core audience that BlizzCon tends to target, which is, primarily PC with, some smatterings on console.
Well, that's kind of the benefit of why they wanted to target mobile gamers, because there is a large swath of mobile gamers, but they're playing Bejeweled on their phones. They're playing all these little pay-to-win games or Pokemon Go, those kinds of things, right? They're
Well, you can't fault them for wanting to break into that market. Where they went wrong was making that the centerpiece of BlizzCon that's not for that market.
yeah, everyone at BlizzCon was not there for mobile game. That's the tried and true reason. Everyone that was there has a PC and they game on their PC. I highly doubt there was many console Diablo players that went to BlizzCon, and that's the only game they played. There might have been a few Overwatch people, so we'll give them the benefit, but most
you
of it,
gotta have something special going on when the biggest thing to come out of that announcement was, is this an out of season April Fool's joke?
yeah.
You have so misread your audience when that's one of the questions that gets asked.
Well, it's one thing to try to target a new market. The problem that really came out of that is they're targeting a market that a lot of the people who go to BlizzCon don't care about.
Exactly. And
Well,
not only that, but they were going to do it by bringing us a reskinned Chinese game. That was it.
on top of that, they're censoring it. This is going to be a family-friendly Diablo game, which is really weird considering Diablo's themes overall.
You're not going to have demons. You're not going to have skeletons. You're not going to have a lot of things that are deemed offensive to the Chinese culture, which is fine, cultural sensitivity and all, but, maybe make that something that's geo-locked, perhaps. Have different skins or creatures for different geolocations.
So not only did they market it wrong, they're butchering the IP.
Yeah.
And the problem is that, Diablo has always been mature. Because, it's always about, effectively life versus death, good versus evil. And we're talking, a lot of, it really is a violent game. And they're trying to tone that down to something that's far more family friendly. It's like, that's not Diablo. It'd be like saying, figuring out a way to make Mortal Kombat family friendly.
Fatality.
Wouldn't that be a famality?
So they're changing the IP. They announced and made it the center focus of BlizzCon. There was a lot out there, and I kind of agree. I think it would have gone over better had they had some sort of teaser, like with Bethesda when they did the Elder Scrolls 6 teaser after their little mobile announcement. To say, hey, we're still working on this. Don't worry about it. This is just kind of to fill in the meantime, but they had nothing of that. And then rumors started going around that they did have something to show. And even Blizzard, who never responds to rumors, chimed in and said they did not, that there was nothing planned. And, and so any form of that was to kind of placate the player base, immediately gone. It's a wonder. They knew they were going to have backlash, but how could they have overlooked, that it was going to be that bad?
Maybe they didn't have mobile phones to check Twitter.
Apparently.
Hey, everyone's got mobile phones, right?
Yeah, y'all have mobile phones. Oh, goodness.
They
Worst
shall be
comment.
memes for the eternity of gaming.
Yeah, that's going to probably be on every PR slide deck for the next 10 years at colleges. It's like, don't do what Blizzard did. This is a PR nightmare.
To wrap all that up, too, they came out in an interview saying, we've got multiple lead developers that we've moved over to our mobile projects.
Yeah.
That's not a good way to make your current player base very confident in future endeavors. If you're taking your best lead developers and throwing them into the mobile market rather than focusing on the games that
People
your player
care
base
about.
actually want,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's even more on top of that. It's just ridiculous.
The better way to announce that would have been, we've finalized our initial groundwork for our next game projects, and so now those developers can move over to the mobile and build its groundwork. That might have been a better way to break it. Whether that's truthful or not is probably unlikely, but still.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it. I don't know. BlizzCon really did not end the year well, and it didn't bode well for what came after either.
Everything has
I mean,
played out since then. It's just been it's been very rocky, and it's been a lot of trying to make this game look like it's it's new, it's fresh. No, it's not based on that. It really does look like it from everything that's been shown, and more, it's basically turned into damage control.
Yeah, they're on the back foot having to defend their decision about this mobile game that's just a reskin of other NetEase IP.
yeah, I mean, and people are noticing too because after BlizzCon, you immediately saw a stock market dip for Activision Blizzard, and that signaled some issues that the company's been having lately. There's articles out there now that are going over that, um, they were encouraging people to have participate in their career crossroads. So basically, we pay you a big lump sum and you leave the company. They started getting meetings set up with the CFOs talking about how they need to cut cost, uh, you know, where they can and still be producing content.
And a lot of it, it's hard to say if it's coming from hits on Blizzard itself or where it's actually coming from, you know, Activision. And that's
Yeah,
where a lot of
Oh,
people are thinking.
it
yeah,
most definitely has got to be Activision because up until this point, for the most part, as far as community perception is, Blizzard has been Blizzard. Activision has been Activision. Um, there really hasn't seemed to be much interference on Activision's part, at least from our being able to perceive until now. I think because now we're starting to see, what these big publishing companies do, and there's a couple others out there who are doing the same thing. They go and they get their greedy little hands in there and start dictating what the developers need to be doing in order to satiate um, the stock market, the people who are investing in the games, rather than, well, if we push this out, it may not go over so well. Yeah, well, we need to push it out now rather than, hold off and make it better, or, push this mobile market thing, whatnot. But
yeah. It's just shooting for low hanging fruit and maximizing profits. I mean, when you start having strategic decisions being driven by the financial group rather than what it was like before, where meetings never involved financial bigwigs.
well, that we know of, at least not to the extent where the game suffered for it as much as we're seeing now.
Well, there was a guy that actually wasn't allowed to talk to the press, but he had recently left the company, and he's saying that finance in general in Blizzard has been one of those invisible functions that's there but doesn't have a say. But now they were suddenly showing up in meetings.
Yeah.
So it seemed like in the past finances weren't the primary focus. It wasn't, let's make money off of this, or let's get this out there so we can have a good quarter and report good profits to our investors. No, they wanted to make the game as good as it could be so that they could continue on their good reputation.
I mean, you think about it, up until recently, it's pretty much been a meme out there for Blizzard, when is it going to be done? Trademark soon,
Hmm.
and it would go and go until they felt that, the product was ready to release. But I mean, they're starting to see it in other areas too, not just, the career crossroads, I believe was like primarily being pushed towards customer service side.
Hmm.
But they then up and right before Christmas, after they had at BlizzCon been, trying to recruit and talking about doing their next esports events, just suddenly said, we're canceling Heroes of the Storm esports. Right before Christmas, those teams and people are suddenly out of a job, no heads up. I mean, they're shifting those developers to other teams just because they're trying to cut these costs. And, Heroes of the Storm probably wasn't terribly lucrative. But, so it got on the chopping block.
And since then, that one hit hasn't been the last one to come out. According to various surveys, it looks like they're taking shots at some of the others as well.
Yeah, there's been speculation on Hearthstone, because it hit the scene late. There's some other card games out there that have been around longer.
Magic.
Magic the Gathering, which has recently made a recent good comeback with their platformer that they released.
Well, at least the digital version.
Yeah.
I wonder how well. Well, I guess the World of Warcraft races or World of Warcraft ones are. I don't know if they're considered esports. They do have them at BlizzCon, but
Where they do the mythic
races,
runs and whatnot.
Mythic runs and Mythic pluses. I wonder how long that'll be around. Overwatch has not been growing like the investors want, from what I understand. So, if that continues to plummet, what's going to happen to the Overwatch leagues?
Yeah. I mean, it's still a very popular streamed game. It's still not quite the Fortnite Battle Royale kind of level, though.
No.
But it also brings something different than a Battle Royale. So there is still a market for it.
But how much of a market is going to be the question in the eyes of the investors, and therefore their
Well, and how well can they monetize it, too?
yeah.
I mean, there's people that dump hundreds of dollars into loot crates on those, but loot crates are starting to become a dangerous thing. You look at the European Union, they're starting to ban loot crates altogether. So it's definitely going to start making some waves.
Yep.
Certain places have made them illegal. Some states are going after them as well, only because they're placing it as a form of gambling.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is simply because you could be looking at children being the ones who are trying to spend all the money on this form of gambling.
Yep, because they're a susceptible group. They are more impulsive, especially with money that they didn't have. That it's their parents' money, and their parents might not be keen on letting them just spend it.
But unfortunately, that same idea can go to any or most mobile games.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. The
Mobile
Diablo
is
game.
mobile has
Guarantee
been a
you.
pay-to-win environment for a long time, especially when you look at like Facebook games and things like that.
Oh yeah. I mean, no doubt this Diablo game's going to come out and it's going to run the same gambit as every other one, where you're going to have some quick leveling, quick choppy pace for a while, and then you're going to hit that paywall where it's going to become so ridiculously tedious to try and maintain the game that it pretty much drives you to the cash shop with
Mm-hmm.
whatever monetization efforts that they are going to put into it, be it loot boxes or just
Bonus experience or any
bonus
number of things.
experiences, timer cooldowns, the pay to win stuff, because that's something like that's a little bit easier to throw in a pay to win. Although with it being multiplayer, I don't know what the extent for that's going to be.
Here's the flip side, though. I mean, to be fair, if you value your time and you don't necessarily have the time to invest hours upon hours of grinding to get your character going in a game like Diablo, who wouldn't want to spend $10 or $15 to instantly launch their character into a near mid to end game level where they could then do that final enjoying grind of having a fully functional character? And you see it with Diablo 3 in their power leveling stuff where they get in groups, boost themselves to 70 nearly instantly, and then go on a leech run and just collect gear for a little bit, and then boom, they have a fully working set. They could be self-sufficient.
Which is exactly why that practice is prevalent in the mobile market. They make the grind so ridiculous you're forced to do that if you don't have the time or the desire to grind it out.
Mm-hmm. And the thing I just described in Diablo 3, it would take 10, 15 hours to do solo, if not even longer. How much is 15 hours of your time worth to you?
Yeah.
And there is a market for it. Unfortunately, I think it's being abused in that they're being used more for cash cows than actually playing the game for enjoyment's sake. And that's partly the problem. Maybe the game isn't enjoyable to play through and level your character like that. Maybe that's where the root of the problem really is.
Well, they're definitely still suffering, and it didn't go over well enough that their CFOs have even left. Both the CFO for Activision and the CFO for Blizzard. I mean, Morheim stepped down at BlizzCon. That was kind of a foreboding. And I think his consultation period ends in like April or something like that.
Yeah.
So
I mean, he is getting older. He has the ability to retire. And why wouldn't he want to go on and spend time with his family? And
which is probably part to do with it, but it makes you also wonder if he's not agreeing with the direction in which Activision wants to take Blizzard. I mean, this is a
could very
company
well be the
he
case.
He founded, and obviously back in that day, they were very gamer centric. They focused on making a game for the gamer, and now they're having people step in and they're wanting to make games for the investor
shareholders
and the shareholders. So unless he comes out and outrightly states, we'll never know for sure, but you can't help but speculate that might be what's happening because he does it right before this major dump of crap that happens.
Yeah. I mean, it hasn't been the first time somebody has had disagreements with the direction and thus stepped down. But I mean, they lost both their CFOs, and one of them got poached by Netflix, and
the other is by a financial company of some Square, I think. Financial.
The problem is Spencer Newman actually got poached while he was still in a contract with Activision, and so...
Oh yeah, they fired him before he could technically leave the job.
Yep.
I'm sure he'd only been there for I think they said 18 months or something. He had not been there for very long, and even he was like, nope, I'm out of here.
Yeah, I mean, when you break a contract, and I mean, going to Netflix is probably a lucrative thing, I don't know, but to actually ruin a reputation by breaking a contract, that's some pretty heavy motivation there. Either Netflix gave him a good deal that he could survive such a breach, but I don't know.
Oh, probably. But he was also he spent years with Disney, I think it was before. So he's not a guy that just jumped ship the drop of a hat.
Yeah, I believe he did 20 years at Disney.
he gets hired on at Blizzard, and then he's out of there after
18
a
months.
short period of time. Yeah, I mean, does
Yeah.
not bode well for what's. And then, of course, the guy they got in to replace him gets hired in for what, $1 million salary or something like that, and then another
15.
15 in like potential royalties based off of performance that's in stocks.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of money to just be splashing out to get somebody else in, and then to go and have layoffs almost immediately thereafter.
And not just like a handful or just like the customer service. It's like 100 and some off layoffs that are speculated that are going to happen.
Yeah, for a company that only has 6,300 employees, to lose hundreds, more than 100, but 200 or something, that's a pretty heavy slash to your workforce.
I mean, the decisions being made by Activision there's something wrong there too, because even Bungie, who came out, like Blizzard came out and said that the latest expansion for Destiny 2 didn't perform well. It was still a moneymaker. It just didn't hit the marks that they were hoping for the shareholders. And Bungie's developers had to come out and say, we are proud of what we created, even though it didn't live up to your standards. And then they jumped ship. They managed to negotiate with Activision to say, hey, we want our IP and we're leaving. And they got it. And that was another major hit for Activision, because that's a complete game that's gone for, revenue.
Yeah, and it
Even
was
if you would actually have watched, that was a 10% drop on stock market.
Oh yeah, I mean, they've been battered financially for sure.
I mean, the decisions in Destiny 2 compared to 1, they're the color, like your colors for armors and gear went from being something you acquired permanently to a one-time use drop. They put in the loot boxes, the cash shop for getting all the fancy things. They tried to monetize the crap out of it, and there was a ton of player backlash, because, they're like, well, you had all this in Destiny 1, and then you go and make Destiny 2, and you force the developers to go and create it with this monetization system in place. That's horrific.
Yeah.
And Activision is going to continue to be in major trouble if they can't get their act together and realize they need to stop pleasing the shareholders and focus on those who actually buy their games, because the gamers are wisening up. It's no longer, buy it because it's a Blizzard title or whatever, an Activision title, just because, those games are good. Now there's going to be sitting, well, what are they going to do to monetize it? What are they going to do to, screw this game up so that it doesn't come out polished and whatnot? And everybody's going to be questioning them continuously now.
This just is another case of showing that, you have to pay attention to the people you're playing to. And there have been a couple channels that have analyzed, how this can go forward, how this could play out, what could be done better. But the problem is that Activision has been playing more, like you said, toward their shareholders. And sure, that's, part of being on the stock market. The problem is that when you play that way, you're not focusing on the people who are actually helping you make your money.
Yeah.
And you need to focus on that aspect, which is basically, you don't want to say, here, get a thing, you need to buy this, and then you want to spend extra money and hope that it works. No, it's a matter of, here's this thing. Do you like it? If you do, buy it, and then we can see about doing more of this and make it better. And so that they will buy more of it. But they're not, unfortunately, Activision has been focusing on more, here's, this kind of repetitious, blundering and just saying, "Here, go for it." Um,
How can we milk our customers for all they're worth, rather than how can we make a game that they're willing to stick around for?
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, there's enough alternatives out there for most of the IP that Activision has that they have to make their games better in some way, or else people will jump ship and go to these other IPs.
I mean, a good example of it right now is that WoW is not doing so hot. I mean, their content is boring. It's repetitive. It's like Legion 2.0. There was nothing different. The raids are great. The Mythic Plus dungeons are good, but for anybody who's not in that scene, there's World Quest dailies and nothing super interesting really. And there's other games out there right now. There's, Elder Scrolls Online and Final Fantasy 14 are doing very well. And they're probably snagging some of the players from Blizzard. I know I spend now more time in Elder Scrolls Online than I do in Blizzard's World of Warcraft when I want something to just fun to go do something out in the gaming world. Because I don't want to log on and do world quests. They're getting super boring and lame.
I think something that would really help Blizzard is when they come out with a WoW Classic to see what keeps bringing players back to WoW Classic.
Well, and it makes you wonder how many are actually going to come back to Classic with how much blundering they've been doing. I've seen a couple of YouTubers that are like, yeah, I was all hyped for Classic, but not sure I'm gonna deal with it anymore.
Yeah,
I
whether
don't
they'll
want
have
to
a sub by the
deal with
time they
that.
get it done.
Exactly.
You have to remember that when it comes to WoW, it's still one of the few MMOs that its primary income method is a sub, a monthly subscription. And that's where its money is coming from. A lot of MMOs have switched to more of a free to play model, and while they may have a monthly sub, it's fully optional.
Yeah,
And
or
that's a big difference.
you help compensate by like Elder Scrolls Online, where you buy the expansion and then you get it free to play. They do have a cash shop there. Blizzard is super greedy in the fact that they not only make you pay $15 a month, they go and make custom mounts and pets and throw them on their store
And
rather
still
than
make you
allowing
pay
you
for the expansions.
and still make you pay for the expansions. And they're like super cool looking unique mounts, and they're throwing in reskins of horses for half the expansion. It forces people to say, hey, you want this cool thing, you have to go buy it, and pay us the 15 a month.
Well, also the other kicker, like when the mounts they put on the store, like they've had 2 mounts come out on the store, and the biggest problem with them is that they were extremely expensive. And we're talking expansion cost expensive.
Well, they've always come out at the $25 mark.
And that's one of the big. Well, and then we can just shoot at them all then and say, why are we paying for something that's basically supposed to be the exact same cost as a full expansion, just about, or heck, even half the cost of an expansion for one mount.
Especially when
Oh
there's
yeah.
200 mounts in the game that you can easily get.
And they
Come
go
on
and
now.
release like the pig mount recently, right around the Lunar Festival time, and everybody's like, really? You couldn't just, add that to the Lunar Festival and give us something new to shoot for, because there's nothing to do new in your game right now.
Yeah, none of the festivals are changing. They don't have new awards for going through the festival again, even though you've done it 6 times already.
I mean, they'll throw on the occasional toy or pet, but nothing like a mount or anything super special like that.
I mean, I can understand not wanting to, make gear slot machines or something like that, but they've already got so many slot machines out there because of this whole we want you to get gear how you want to get gear kind of thing. So you can pretty much raid level gear yourself without actually ever stepping foot in a raid.
Well, the developers talked about correcting that. And I'm sure we're gonna see some. I think we're gonna be seeing some adjustment to that in future patches. But yeah, monetization wise though, they're being greedy. Here, pay for these mounts and pets and oh, and now they're coming out with a toy where part of the proceeds are going to help support their esport. And it's like a company as big and lucrative as Blizzard shouldn't be begging its customers for that. I mean, sure, a smaller company who, is trying to host a little tournament of some sort, yeah, I can see something being offered to help, pay for prize monies and stuff, but they're trying to say, you want these esports to stick around, you got to help pay for it.
Maybe they should charge tickets to regular events, like online tickets or something. Hey, look, this is like MMA, pay $5, you get to watch the show.
That would totally drive away their viewer base, I guarantee.
Oh yeah.
The games are not that entertaining to watch, I don't think.
Well, some have been, but it's the problem. Like in certain games, it's not that all extremely entertaining.
I mean, Hearthstone, there's not a whole lot of like, I don't know. That's probably one of the most boring I can imagine watching, and it's been a lot of going around saying that's might be one of the reasons doesn't have as much viewership as say like StarCraft.
Here's the thing though. The Super Bowl was watched by roughly 200 million people this last Super Bowl, just a few weeks ago. And in League of Legends had 400 million viewers for their tournament. Twice the Super Bowl viewership worldwide. I mean, there's a viewership out there. I mean, Heroes of the Storm, it's a MOBA as well. I mean, League of Legends
can't compete with League of Legends. It can't. Dota and League of Legends have it trumped, and that's probably why they axed it. It just was not. It was late to the game, and everybody was like, "Well, why shift there when these others are doing just fine as is?"
And yeah, I mean, they've been doing very well. They've had a lot more time and opportunity to balance and make their game dynamic. Plus, they have a larger meta,
Also, when you look at games like Hearthstone, I mean, the problem with the card games, and this coming from someone who's played Magic the Gathering for many years, it's not an energetic game. It is a thinking man's game, and it's in a way
it's
as
like
you
watching
could,
chess.
Exactly. You're not going to have a whole lot of cheering. It's going to be, something happens here, something happens there, and you're otherwise just sitting there watching, and you have two guys that are not doing much because they're just going to be sitting there staring at the board in their hand, and they're trying to outthink their opponent. It's not a big watcher game. So that's one of the biggest problems when it comes to that. And even the same can be said for good old Magic the Gathering.
But Magic the Gathering does have a viewership. People would gather around and watch a Magic the Gathering game. And heck, I think Hearthstone, if they just mixed it up a little bit and allowed 3-man teams against 3-man teams, and what was the mode of that we played with Magic?
Three-headed giant.
Yeah.
Or King
mode. Yeah, you had King in the two.
What was that called?
Yeah. Just playing with how the game is set up would bring a whole new realm of things that they could do. But whether they're going to do that or not, I mean, they try it and it's going to just completely wreck their balance.
And that's one of the things that, for example, Magic has done on their the MTG Arena. They have several different modes that you can play in, and there's even they've had a couple of modes that are just little quick drafts, very simple types, and they've really mixed up the rules.
Mm-hmm.
And those stuff that you would normally see, like for example, as like house rules, have been set up like as miniature tournaments. A few weeks back, there was a miniature tournament where you come in with a deck that's all lands, and how it would play out is you pay X amount of mana, and then you're given a creature that costs that much mana.
Hmm.
From all the expansions, from across the expansions that are available in the game, which means you could end up with a very large variety of potential creatures. And so it was an extremely chaotic play type.
Yeah.
Blizzard didn't quite have that kind of entertainment with it, unfortunately. And
Well, I think
But they only have one play mode. So
I think one of the problems, just looking at this array of games that they got, is they're hyper focused on balance and fairness rather than fun. You know what I mean? Like,
well, you kind of have to be to do their esports scene. I mean, you can't
yes,
have.
but you can have tournament mode, but then you can also
Eh,
have non-tournament mode. I mean, a game like StarCraft, yeah, you're going to have to make it balanced, make each race have the uniqueness, but also be able to compete evenly against each other so it's not always Zerg or whatever. But, you get Diablo. Part of the fun of Diablo is the ability to make your character so freaking OP they have to make 13 torment levels. Because you remember, they didn't have 13 when the game first came out. People
Nope.
became so OP because they figured out ways to do stuff and combine stuff that T10 was just so stupidly easy.
Well, you have to also remember that they had to add those levels in the beginning because they didn't exist initially.
Yeah, it used to
They
be
had to
just
add, it used to
four
be monster.
tiers of
It was
difficulty.
4 tiers, and then they added the monster level slider.
Yeah, the little slider to increase your loot drop potential, but also make the creatures harder by just giving them more life and more damage.
Yeah, tournament levels 1.0.
well,
That's the whole thing, though, is it allowed the players to become OP, make mechanics to overcome that OPness, and yeah, I said it, and allow them to have that fun and give them a ceiling that they can break through, and then make that ceiling higher. In Hearthstone, like I said, these different play modes. So what if they make this uber deck that becomes so OP that they just start raffle stomping everything? Yeah, maybe throw in something that can counter that deck as an expansion, or maybe bring in these different play modes that don't necessarily have to be balanced.
well, here's the problem. Looking to the future here. I mean, there's based off of what we saw at BlizzCon, there was pretty much nothing new. There was nothing to really expand upon, nothing exciting coming in, and I don't think that really bodes well for the future. They do claim they're working on other projects, but most we've heard is it's all under the mobile umbrella. And that's going to really kill off their core PC audience. So Blizzard's future right now with doing something fun like that, I really don't think is going to happen.
Yeah.
And they're focusing on basically they're focusing on a market that at BlizzCon the primary audience is not going to care about, for example. They're focusing on a mobile market, and the problem is the mobile market, really the only place you're going to get anything worthwhile out of that is over in Asia.
Yeah,
So
and
China.
they may very well make money on it and get rewarded for doing so, which will make them want to do it more. And unfortunately, that's the wrong direction, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Well,
they're removing the things that are fun but not necessarily cost effective. Taking out the Heroes of the Storm esports. Who knows if like Hearthstone's going to be next, or any of the others if they can't help generate revenue with their little toy campaign. The quality of content coming out for some games like World of Warcraft isn't really there. That's yet to be seen. If they're shifting development teams around, who knows what's going to happen.
I mean, pretty much all the games, all of us World of Warcraft people are sitting here going, man, I hope we don't have a 13-month content drought again. Because every expansion, that's the same thing that happens. A huge content drought. The Diablo 3 people, even though they have a very well functioning game right now, they're all looking forward to Diablo 4 because they want that new thing, even if it's going to reset them on the playability or the smooth play that they are currently getting with Diablo 3. I mean, StarCraft 2, how long did they have to wait for StarCraft 2 to come out from StarCraft 1? They're sitting on the fence going, okay, when's the next big thing coming? When's StarCraft 3 coming out? I mean, you got all these remasters going out now, too. When's Warcraft 4 coming out with all this new stuff that World of Warcraft has touched on? And
Yeah, I mean,
they're
well,
just in this stalled holding pattern where we can see some things that are going to come out. We know there's going to be another WoW expansion. We know that they're going to be doing these different things with Diablo Immortal and who knows what, but everything else is up in the air. Will there be more in the Warcraft realm? Will there be more in the StarCraft realm?
I mean,
Probably not for a while.
I think ultimately how successful their plan for the Diablo Immortals is probably going to dictate the future that they're going to push towards. If it's super successful, they may look at something like Warcraft 4 and go, well, we could make that, but
A
we're not going
mobile
to get
game.
as much money out of
Yeah.
it, or make it into a mobile game.
RTS mobile.
Why?
Yeah, we saw how that turned out with Command and Conquer. Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's. I think, but I really think that how well it's received in their targeted market of families in China is gonna be a dictator in the future of the standard Blizzard games and what we may or may not see. And with how much their stock is dropping, their financial uh, exodus of you know their employees and CFOs and all this jazz. What they're going to be taking a hard look at. What we want money, we want to appease our shareholders, and we're not going to focus on the gamer unless they realize suddenly that we matter. We're the ones that buy their games, and they're not going to get money if they don't cater to us, at least in some regards. But
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to be looking at their Warcraft subscription and be like, every 3 months I could buy myself a new AAA title on a 20% off discount. So why don't I start doing that instead? And
people have already started doing that too. I mean, it's already known that WoW's population is pretty much tanked for
I
compared
mean,
to.
if we look at even our guild, I mean, how many people have we lost that have given up on just because they got bored?
there's been
Just this expansion.
There's been any number of reasons why people have left, and I think the underpinning thing is probably the monotony and the bored part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, monotony, boredom, even recruitment has been a pain. But
And we're a high pop server.
yeah.
That's
So well, I currently don't. I mean, I don't know. I don't have a whole lot of hope from right now.
yeah. I mean, yeah. I hope it's not a death knell, but I can definitely see it circling the maelstrom at the moment.
And the only thing I can say that might be good, and it's going to be a wait and find out still, is, recently talent was picked up from CD Projekt Red.
Yeah, isn't
And
it being brought in for actually World of Warcraft? Or was it Diablo?
I was hearing Diablo last. So it's going to be a wait and find out. But yeah, that is something.
If they could employ some of the stuff that CD Projekt Red has done with their Witcher series and into a Diablo, game of some kind, that would be pretty awesome.
And so it's hard to say as to what they're going to use him for, or how that how his impact will play out. But that is one tiny bit of highlight. But again,
Yeah,
it's going to
but
be waiting by now because there's a lot of crap
yeah,
that they've got
and
to wade through.
if it does come out and they start hyping a new game of some kind, I'm totally in the position of I'm gonna wait until it comes out and see what, the the YouTube people say of, reviewing it and what it's like, because at this point I'm getting really suspicious of companies of pre-ordering things.
Yeah, I mean,
Yep.
I've made it a pretty much hard stance of don't pre-order anything until you see what it is, get reviews on it, or just see how launch goes. I mean,
Yeah, Diablo 3 did not have a good launch at all.
even with the demo that I've seen of Anthem, I have a hard time saying that I would pre-order it. I mean, I've seen enough bugs in it. I mean, I even recorded one recently where the game was glitching to nobody's business on me. I mean, you can see me just kind of trying to do stuff. I don't even have a head in my suit.
Yeah, well, yeah,
And I do this twitchy, glitchy thing. Granted, it was the first and only time it happened, but it was still hilarious. I had to record some of it. And I actually love games. I love games like Destiny 2 and Anthem. And I would be wholly behind a game that ended up being really awesome in this regard. But I have a hard time.
Yep, we're just gonna have to sit on our laurels until things start, until their Warcraft remasters come out and all that, and see once those projects are out and once Diablo Immortal is out, what do they have next?
Yeah.
Because they're gonna have a pretty lengthy dry spell for the next while of no new content. I guarantee you not a whole lot of their current player base is going to want to play the Diablo Immortal. I could be wrong on that, but from what it sounded like at BlizzCon, I don't really see a whole lot of that community jumping on it.
Depending on the pricing model. If it's
Could
free to
be, depending
play
on
with pay to
the model.
win, there might still be people that play it for free. Will they pay to win it? Probably not.
Yeah, possibly, but even playing for free usually involves ad content and stuff, so it's still going to bring in revenue for it.
And, depending on how they do it, that might be fine.
Well, again, we have to sit there and wait and see.
To be fair, in my personal opinion, if they made a bank tab for Diablo 3 for $5, I think they could sell a lot of it.
Don't give them ideas. If they start throwing in microtransactions like that, they're going to have a crap ton of backlog.
Yeah, but that's my biggest thing has always been not enough storage. You know what I mean?
Well, look at like Path of Exile, which is one of the biggest competitors for Diablo.
Mm-hmm.
Free to play, but it's also got ways to bite bank tabs.
Exactly, and
so
I mean,
but
it's free to play.
That's the kicker.
Yeah.
And once we start, the problem is that we get a lot of games with pushing these microtransactions, and that's the problem that EA has had, and that's what they've gotten shot at. So Blizzard needs to come back to what they were, which is games for the gamers.
Yeah, have something with a compelling story that really drives the player to want to play through that storyline. In case you guys are wondering, I brought up the in case of emergency break Crystal Illidan picture because that's a good example. I mean, when Legion was coming out, they announced that it was Illidan and all that. Everyone was like, "Oh, they're bringing Illidan. This is going to be good." Everyone resubbed, right? And they just need some kind of content that is rich that people will enjoy playing.
Unfortunately, I think Blizzard's got an uphill battle with how deep Activision is sinking their claws into the company.
Yeah, they need to fight off the bean counters and actually go back to their roots. Because you're not going to make money if you don't have a compelling IP, a compelling game. And no matter how much the accountants want to make microtransactions and sell more titles, the only way you do that in a gaming community is by having some absolutely fabulous game and then have the mind share that Blizzard has behind it. Because there have been other absolutely fabulous games that have come across the indie markets and nobody bought them because nobody knew about them and they didn't have enough money to make the game appealing enough. Maybe we'll put it that way.
Well, any other thoughts, or have we exhausted this one?
Well, I
Pretty much
think we tapped it out, but I think we can wrap on those final thoughts. And I really hope Blizzard pulls themselves out of this little bit of a dovetail they're starting into. And who knows, maybe we'll get lucky and they'll separate from Activision like Bungie did.
Dovetail. I'd label it more as a loss of altitude very quickly.
That would definitely be a dovetail.
Unfortunately, that Blizzard wouldn't be able to separate quite so easily.
No,
Unfortunately,
because of their hyphenated Activision-Blizzard name. It's definitely going to be harder than with Bungie, but I think that would be one of their few hopes that they have left, or have the Activision side of things die off so much that Blizzard becomes the first letter or the first word in their hyphenation.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Hopefully it's not the beginning of the end, or else I'll have to find something to do on my raid nights. But thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this back and forth and this coverage that we had for Activision Blizzard. We look forward to doing more of these for you. So if you have any other topics in mind, be sure to give us a holler in the comments below. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
stay toasty.
Toasty.
See you later.